In the lush green valleys of Esh, a mighty kingdom surrounded by rivers and guarded by mountains, the drums never stopped. It was a land of music and mystery, where warriors painted their faces with ash and queens ruled beside kings. And in this kingdom there was a girl whose name meant fire, Princess Zola. From the day she was born, the earth shook with storms. The village midwives said, "She is not just royalty, she is destiny." And destiny, it seemed, had given her a gift and a curse. Zola grew to be breathtaking. Her skin shimmered like bronze kissed by the gods. Her eyes held the storm and the sun together. But what made her most feared was not her beauty. It was her mind. She was wise, fierce, and sharp-tongued. She read ancient scrolls. She debated the elders. She once defeated the best warrior in a riddle contest. And she never smiled unless she meant it. The people whispered. The gods put both a lion and a woman in her chest. And no man can match her. She will never bow. She will rule alone. She will rule alone. By the time she turned 21, over 60 suitors had come from distant lands. A prince from the north arrived with 12 camels and a gold throne. She sent him home when he failed to answer how many rivers ran through Esh. A king from the west tried to charm her with songs, she said. "Your voice is sweet, but your heart is empty." A warrior from the south offered a lion's tooth necklace, she replied. "Why do not wear symbols of death to honor life?" Each one left in shame. Her father, King Adami, grew tired. "Zola," he said, "are you waiting for a god?" She replied, "No, father. I'm waiting for a man who sees me not as a prize, but as a path." So the queen, Zola's mother, wise and quiet like the moon, proposed a final test. Let a challenge be set, not for strength, not for wealth, but for spirit. Zola agreed. Let each man who comes not bring a gift, but face a question, and the challenge was declared across the 4 corners of the land. The man who can answer the princess's question will win her hand. But if he fails, he must never return. Hundreds came, hundreds failed. The question changed every time. Sometimes she asked, "What do you fear most? And why do you lie about it? When is silence braver than truth? Would you break a law to save a stranger?" Many stuttered. Some lied. One cried. None passed. Till he came. No one saw him arrive. He had no guards, no camels, no bags. He wore a brown robe, his face hidden beneath a wide straw hat. The guards stopped him. "Where is your name, your gift, your offering?" He simply said, "My name will be known if it is earned, and my offering is myself." They laughed, but he did not. So they let him pass. He entered the throne room with quiet footsteps, and when he removed his hat, the room gasped. He was young, dark as the night sky, with eyes that seemed to hold thunder and peace at once. He bowed to the king and queen, and then he looked straight into Zola's eyes. Not with hunger, not with fear, but with recognition. She stood. For the first time she spoke before the question was asked. "Who are you?" "A man who does not wish to own you, only to walk beside you." The elders sat straighter. The drums fell silent. Zola asked to then walk, but walk through truth. She stared at him, her voice like wind over flame. "Here is your question. If the gods gave you the power to rule the world, but you had to erase all your memories, would you say yes?" The court held its breath. He smiled, not with pride, but sadness. "Because power without memory is tyranny dressed in innocence. I would rather remember my pain and live unknown than forget who I am to become a king of emptiness." A long silence followed. Then Zola smiled. For the first time in years, she stepped down from her chair, stood in front of him, touched his cheek. "And what is your name?" he replied, Omori. "It means the speaker of truth." She whispered and then spoke again. "Omori, tomorrow, in my garden." The court was stunned. Zola had never invited a suitor back. Not once, but the next day she met Amory in her garden. And what he revealed in that garden made her scream. Not in pain, not in fear, but in something no one ever expected. The royal garden of Esh was no ordinary garden. Its trees were planted by ancestors. Each flower bed was shaped like an ancient symbol, and the waterfall at the edge was said to sing when love was real. This was where Zola brought Omari. She wore no royal robes, only a simple cotton wrapper. Her feet were bare, her hair loose, but she was still a storm beneath the sky. "You may walk beside me," she said, "but you must speak. What are you hiding?" Harvey stood near the old fig tree, hands behind his back. His voice was calm. "I came here not for your hand, but because of your heart, because it once saved mine. Zola frowned. What do you mean? Amari took a deep breath. 12 years ago, during the War of the Red River, there was a boy. His village was burned, his family killed. He was injured, hiding under a bridge. The soldiers were coming. He was sure he would die. But then a young girl in a red scarf found him. She gave him water, covered his wound, told him to never forget who he was. Zola's eyes widened. I wore a red scarf during that war. I gave water to a boy by the river. He nodded. That boy was me. You saved my life. But you were taken away by guards before I could ask your name. She took a step back, breath quickening. Her fingers trembled. That was you, he smiled gently. It was the only memory I held on to when I had nothing. You, Princess Zola, became the reason I lived. Not to serve you, but to stand as your equal one day. And then it happened. Zola screamed, not from fear, not from pain, but from the sudden crash of a hidden memory and the weight of unexpected emotion. She collapsed to her knees, hands covering her face. Servants rushed in. Guards stepped forward, but Zola raised her hand. Leave us. They obeyed. Tears flowed down her face. Not because she was weak, but because she had never let herself feel before. I have been stoned for so long, and now you bring water, she whispered. Almarie knelt beside her, not touching her, only waiting. You said I saved you, but maybe you were sent to save me. That evening, Zola did not sit on her royal throne. She walked with Almarie by the firelight, barefoot in the royal square. The people whispered again. She smiles. She walks like she's found something worth more than power. This man is not a suitor. He is a mirror, and still Zola tested him. She challenged him to riddles. He solved them. She asked him his greatest weakness. He said, my fear of becoming what hurt me. She told him to name her flaws. He said, you guard your heart too well. She laughed, a sound like rain on a drum. A week passed. Then one day, under the fig tree, Almarie took a knee. Not with a ring, but with a scroll. This is not a marriage proposal, he said. It is a contract, a promise between equals. If you will not be mine, let me still be yours in truth, service, and spirit. Zola took the scroll and read it aloud. I vow to stand beside you, not ahead or behind. I vow to challenge you when needed and protect you when not. I vow to grow with you, fall with you, and rise again. Not as king and queen, but as fire and wind. The crowd waited, she looked at, and for once her voice broke. You are not the man I waited for. You are the one I never imagined. That night the kingdom buzzed. The elders debated. The nobles panicked. He has no land, no army, no title. He is not royalty. Ishi cannot marry a commoner. But Zola was not confused. She stood alone beneath the stars, whispering to her mother's spirit. If love is weakness, then let me break. If it is strength, let me rise with it. The wind blew gently, and the waterfall sang. By dawn, the royal council gathered in the great hall of echoes. Their robes rustled like angry wind. Elder Gamba struck the royal staff thrice. A Princess Zola, we respect your heart. But this Almarie is of no noble blood. He owns no land. He has no title. Another elder, voice cold. He must prove his worth, not just to you, but to the kingdom. Zola stood before them, spine straight. You want tests? Then let there be trials. But know this, you are not testing him alone. You are testing me. The king, her father, looked on in silence. Torn between tradition and the fire in his daughter's eyes, he nodded once. Then so it shall be. 3 trials, one of strength, one of wisdom, one of sacrifice. If Almarie passes, he will not just have your hand, he will have our respect. Almarie was taken to the Valley of the Wild, where a lion had been terrorizing herders. His task, face the beast, not kill it, but outwit it. He entered alone, armed only with a staff and rope. The lion found him quickly. But instead of running, Amari stood tall. Calm, whispering a lullaby his mother once sang to him. The lion paused, and then Omari threw meat soaked in sleep roots near the lion's paws. The beast ate, drowsed, slept. By dusk, Omari returned with the lion snoring behind him. The crowd erupted. Zola smiled. He does not fight for pride. He fights to protect. For the second trial, he was brought before the Council of Elders, each asking a question no man had ever answered correctly. Elder Jabari asked, what is greater than a king, more feared than death, and found only in surrender? Omari replied, a truth, because it humbles kings, conquers fear, and only belongs to those who let go of lies. The room fell silent. Queen Sola's mother nodded slowly. He does not answer with cleverness, he answers with soul. For the final trial, he was brought to the edge of the river Esh. A child had fallen in. A heavy current pulled her toward the rocks. Guards hesitated. The water was deadly. Without a word, Armory dived in. His body slammed into rocks. Blood darkened the water. But with every ounce of strength, he clutched the child and pushed her toward safety. She was pulled out, but Omari did not rise. Zola screamed again, this time in horror. No, not like this. Guards jumped in. Minutes passed. And then he emerged, gasping, bloodied, holding the girl's necklace in his hand. The people bowed. For the first time in centuries, the entire court knelt before a man with no title. That night, under a moon the size of a drum, Zola stood before her people. She wore no gold, no feathers, no crown, only white. Ahmari stood beside her, bandaged, bruised, but standing tall. This man has passed every test, not to prove himself, but to remain himself, she declared. I rejected many, not because they were unworthy, but because they came to conquer, not to connect. But this man met my soul before he ever asked for my hand. She turned to Omari. Will you not take me as your queen, but let me walk as your woman? Omari, eyes steady. Only if you will let me be your man, not your master, they embraced. And the people, once bound by tradition, rose in cheer. The wedding was not in the royal hall, but in the garden where the scream began. No golden thrones, no silk canopies, only trees, drums, and the river whispering in joy. Zola wore her red scarf from the war. Almari wore white, to honour peace. They took no vows from scrolls, but from their hearts. Where you bend, I will not break. Where you fall, I will stay. Where you burn, I will be wind. And when you rise, I will rise with you. After the wedding, the people of Esh noticed something changing, not just in their rulers, but in their lives. Princess Zola, once known for silence and refusal, now walked among her people not as a figure above them, but beside them. Omari, who came from nowhere, did not take the title of king. He refused the throne and instead built the House of Listeners, a place where common people could speak directly to their leaders. Together, they created something never seen in Esh, a kingdom ruled by two minds, not one crown. And the people said, we are no longer ruled, we are represented. Ishi screamed, and it woke the world. Queen Zola began teaching girls that being strong didn't mean being cruel, and being soft didn't mean being weak. She taught that a Noru said from the soul was more powerful than 1,000 yeses given out of fear. Every week, she met with daughters of farmers and traders, telling them, you are not waiting to be chosen, you are waiting to be met. And Mary, he taught boys not to chase power, but to become homes of safety for those they loved. Do not be a man who conquers. Be a man who creates. One day, one of Zola's old suitors returned. It was the Prince of the North, older, humbler. He came not to reclaim her, but to apologize. I brought camels and gold before. I should have brought understanding. Zola shook his hand. And I thank you for returning with growth. He smiled sadly. Does it still hurt, the scream? She looked at the horizon and said, and no, because I screamed out the part of me that believed I would always be alone. Years later, a festival was created, the Day of the Scream. It was not to mock pain, but to honour transformation. Every year on that day, people across the kingdom were invited to scream, in grief, in joy, in release, in reclaiming their voices, and children asked, why do we scream? And the elders replied, because once a princess screamed, and from her voice grew a kingdom that listened. In time, Zola and Omari grew old, but never tired. They had no children of their own. They raised a generation of leaders instead. When they passed, they were not buried in gold. They were laid beneath the fig tree, side by side, the same place where the scream was born and where the love took root. A stone was placed between their graves. It bore only these words, she screamed, he listened, and the world changed. To this day, in many parts of Africa, the story of Zola and Omari is told not as a fairy tale, but as a truth wrapped in legend. A tale of a princess who refused to be possessed, a man who loved without claiming, a scream that broke centuries of silence, and a kingdom that rose. Not through war, but through mutual worth. So, if ever you find a moment when your heart is heavy with what you've held inside, let it out. Even the strongest must sometimes scream, because sometimes a scream isn't weakness, it's the sound of becoming free.